Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. This is the first Totally Unbiased video of the new year, but this is a joint production between Nick Siliverdes Productions and Totally Unbiased. Obviously, you know who I am. I'm Nick, and as always, my partners Andrew and Aiden. We are back for the first time in a while, guys. How's it going?
Doing good, dude. Doing good. Just glad to be back.
Yeah, definitely. New season, a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yes, we got some stuff to talk about today, but first, make sure you do this because you're going to see this on two different pages. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notice bell, hit the like button. We appreciate it. But let's Let's get into it. Let's get going. Today, this video is going to be our top 10 free agents and their potential destinations. Now, to preface this a little bit in the beginning, we will not be discussing guys like Devontae Adams, who will most likely stay where he is, Chris Godwin, who's about to sign an extension, Aaron Rodgers, who most likely is going to stay where he is. We picked 10 guys who are most likely to move on and go play somewhere else. So we're going to jump in and we're going to get started. First guy we're going to talk about is Teron Armstead. He's the left tackle for the Saints. He's been the left tackle for the Saints for a long time. So, guys, what are we thinking about Armstead? Andrew, where do you think he goes? Where is his best fit?
It's easily, there's no doubt in my mind that this is the team he needs to go to, or this is the team that at least needs to pursue him heavily. It's the Bengals. There is no doubt in our minds. Before last season started, Joe Burrow needed an O-line to protect him, and they end up going with Jamar Chase. Now, looking down the road, that wasn't a bad pick, but they do still need that O-line. So it's very simple. I think that's the team he has to go to.
Yeah, I think that's a solid evaluation. Aiden, what are you thinking in terms of Armstead and where he belongs?
Well, Nick, here, I really think there's only one thing that is certain right now, and that he is not returning to the Saints. I just think that situation, they lost their head coach, Jameis coming off an ACL injury. I think the only thing that's really certain with Armstead right now is that he will not be returning to New Orleans. He's one of the most talented tackles in the league. There's plenty of potential for him, but like I said, I think the only thing that's really certain right now is that he's not going to be on the Saints next year.
Yeah, I think his most likely destination is also the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals are going to have to overpay him because, frankly, he's not the guy he used to be. I don't think he's that good anymore, frankly, but he is the guy they need to go after in free agency. There's another guy right now who is hitting the market. He had a very, very good year this year. His breakout season was in a contract year, so that's good for him. But what to make of Mike Williams, and where will Mike Williams go? Andrew, I'm going to start with you. Where do you think Mike Williams is going to land?
So for Mike Williams, listen, with the Chargers, the beginning half of the season, he looked very well. He looked like an amazing complement to Keenan Allen. And then the second half of the season, the Chargers just seemed to scheme him out of their playbook. And with him definitely not going to want to return to a team like that, I'm kind of 50-50 split between the Colts or the Falcons. The Falcons need a guy after Calvin Ridley having his off-the-field issues, saying he needs to take a break from football, and trading away Julio Jones. And then for the Colts, you got guys like Pittman and Pascal. I think they could really, no matter what quarterback they have under center this upcoming year, they need a guy who can play at a number one level. The Colts kind of have a bunch of 2s and 3s on the field right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Aiden, what's your thoughts? Give me a couple thoughts on this one.
I have to say, I feel like the Falcons are a no-brainer for this guy. Ridley, it seems like the offseason indications are that he's going to be out. The Falcons don't really seem to have interest in him anymore. So, they're going to be searching for a new number one. When they lost Ridley this season, they struggled. They struggled for a while. Russell Gage, he started to show out towards the end of the year. But, the thing they needed on offense was diversity. They needed plenty of weapons in their wide receiver core to just, make things easier on Matt Ryan. And, I think Mike Williams is just the best answer to that.
Yeah, I think his best fits the Browns. I think Jarvis Landry's days are numbered. I think they're going to try to force Baker to do something before they cut ties. He's got to do something. And I think maybe getting a guy like Mike Williams would be the best chance. But moving on to two of the bigger ticket items in free agency, guys like this don't hit the market often. We're talking Von Miller, and then we're going to talk Chandler Jones. First, let's talk Von. I personally believe the best fit for Von Miller and the team that will pay him anything he wants, blank check from the Chargers is what I'm thinking. So they, of course, have Joey Bosa on one side. That's great. Jerry Tillery's on the other side. That's enough said. They need a guy who could play the run and the pass as well as Miller does. Tillery couldn't do either. They couldn't stop the run last year. They have issues at linebacker depth as well, but I think this one is a no-brainer. I think Von Miller gets a blank check from the Chargers. Andrew, what are you thinking on this?
For me, I mean, after the Rams won their Super Bowl and Aaron Donald said that if they could get everybody to come back, that he, like when they were questioning him if he wanted to retire, he said if that team comes back as a whole again, he would want to run it back. And I think that the Rams will try and do something like that. So for me, I think they might give up the bag for him and they might try and run it back because they had a fantastic team and I don't see why they wouldn't.
You know, I have to agree with Andrew here. Like, I think, yes, there's a big market for Von Miller, but the Rams are going to prioritize bringing their guys back, especially, like Andrew said, for Aaron Donald's sake. He said that in order to not retire, they need to have their guys back. They need to have the same roster, or at least, you know, all the superstars that they had, basically. So, you know, I think that their number one priority this offseason is just going to be keeping Von and keeping Donald.
Yeah, I gotta disagree with both of you heavily. They don't have the money to spend for Von Miller. Von Miller's going to get a 3 to 4 year contract for $29-ish million a year. They can't afford that. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And Aaron Donald said he's not retiring. Period. It didn't really. He said, yeah, let's run it back, but he didn't. That's not like a. If we don't run it back, then I'm not coming back. No, he just said, let's run it back. We got great guys on this roster. That's all he said. Chandler Jones is the other one. A guy like Chandler Jones doesn't hit the market very often. He had a hot start, slowed down a bit this season. I'm sure it was because he was coming off a major injury. My number one fit for Chandler Jones, Seattle Seahawks, they got to do something to keep Russell Wilson around. And if they don't go ahead and trade Wilson, I see Jones being that move. You know, you don't have to pay DK yet. You're getting Dunlap off the books. I think you gotta go for a big ticket item, and I think Chandler Jones is that item.
Yeah, you know, I think the number one most certain thing is that Chandler Jones will be on a different team next year. And I think the Seahawks are a very good prediction. You know, Bobby Wagner, they need to take some of their relief off of Bobby Wagner, and they have to prioritize this defense. I know that the number one storyline with the Seahawks always tends to be the O-line and how it really is struggling. But I think that, you know, they just need diversity in their pass rush. And I think that Chandler Jones is a great way to address that.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with you guys that the Seahawks could use him. I just think that, personally, I think he's going to the Falcons. Last year, their defense was ranked 31st out of 32 teams in the NFL. So they need improvement in a bunch of spots. And with Matt Ryan's career, I mean, he's been there. He might try and leave in the future. They might want to hopefully try and build something around him and show that they are capable of going back to a Super Bowl. Because ever since they went to a Super Bowl, they've been nothing short of pretty much hot garbage. So I really think that if they make Chandler Jones being one of them, they get a few other key signings, draft well, I think that's a team you could see on the up and up if they also get a wide receiver like Mike Williams.
I could not disagree with you more again about the Falcons. Do you really think that the Falcons are going to spend money?
They have to.
Why? Matt Ryan this season has the biggest cap hit in NFL history of $50 million. That's 1/4 of the cap. They're not signing anybody. Grady Jarrett, they have to get rid of him. They have to get rid of Grady Jarrett. No one's going to go to the Falcons. I believe they are currently, hold on, I have it in front of me here. I believe the Atlanta Falcons right now, according to Spotrac, are about 10 to 15 million under the cap right now. They need the draft. They need that for the draft class. Atlanta doesn't really have anybody to go buy. I don't think that's going to work at all. I really don't. You can't go out spending guys when Matt Ryan will either be traded or retire by the end of this year, and they're not going to try to want to run it back and set the franchise back 3 to 4 years.
I'm not saying run it back immediately for a Super Bowl, but if anything, let me rephrase. It's more start the rebuilding process. I know they wouldn't be bringing in young guys. I mean, Mike Williams is a decently young guy. Chandler Jones is somewhat young. Neither of them are old.
Chandler Jones 30.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to retire within the next 2 years. If you sign him,
he's had 2 major injuries in the last 4 years. I don't think signing a guy to probably $100 million or 5+ years, who's like 30, is a smart play for most teams, let alone the Falcons, who have no future right now on that roster. They're getting rid of their young wide receiver number 1, Calvin Ridley. They have to get rid of him. They're getting rid of their best defensive player, Grady Jarrett. Deion Jones's contract is approaching expiration as well. The Falcons look like they're on a complete teardown and rebuild. I don't think that's going to work. But moving on, Tyrann Mathieu, there's a chance he stays with the Chiefs, but I'm thinking personally, I think he goes to the Ravens. I think they're looking to revamp that secondary a little bit with guys like Tony Jefferson not going to be there anymore. At cornerback, they're pretty stacked, but they have a bunch of guys coming off of season-ending injuries, so they need some help on the back end. Give me Tyrann Mathieu for the Ravens.
I think Tyrann Mathieu is going to run it back with the Chiefs. I know, they've had a couple bad years in a row, or I shouldn't even say bad years. They made the Super Bowl last year, and they almost made it this year. They're certainly one of the best teams in the NFL every year, and I think free agents from the Chiefs recognize that, and that's why they seem to always keep their superstars. And I think that Tyrann's going to fall into that category. He's the captain of that defense. Maybe not as much so this year. They had other guys step up, but he's certainly a big locker room presence in Kansas City, and I think he's going to stick around.
Yeah, you basically summed up what I was going to say. I do think he sticks around with the Chiefs. That team, there's no reason, unless they are just undervaluing him and don't want to pay him even close to what he thinks he's worth. People want to be on that team. Look, even though they're on the offense, guys like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, that it has to be a great locker room presence, and he's definitely part of that. So I think he wants to stay there.
Yeah, great locker room guy. And another guy I want to talk about next is Brandon Sheriff. Now, Brandon Sheriff was interesting last year. He's supposed to be a free agent. They tagged him, got beat up, didn't play a lot this year. But when he is on the field, he's elite. Where do you see him going? Andrew, we'll start with you.
I see him going to reunite with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, because they're another team that doesn't have a fantastic O-line. They could use the improvements. You give Kirk Cousins a better O-line. He did start last season very well, but with a little bit of a better offensive line, I really think that Kirk Cousins could have a tremendous year if they were to pick up someone like Brandon Sheriff.
You know what? Call me crazy. I think Washington's going to throw the bag at Sheriff, and I think he's probably going to stay there. And I think the main thing that's going to affect the decision is what quarterback they acquire in the offseason. That always seems to be the biggest question with Washington. But, I just think in situations like this, especially with teams that struggle year by year like this, they tend to want to prioritize the O-line and just make sure their offense is protected with, especially when they're drafting quarterbacks over and over again.
He's always injured, but I think the Jets are going to throw big money at him. Makes a lot of sense. Young quarterback, young left tackle, young left guard. Throw a new right guard in there. You already have a right tackle and Fant. The Jets are on the up and up, and they can even potentially be drafting a pass rusher or another offensive lineman in the first round. So keep an eye on them to be a big spender in free agency. And moving on, because I know Andrew and I talked about this a little bit earlier. Andrew, this next player, J.C. Jackson, we all thought he was going to re-sign with the Patriots. A little bit of a rift there recently. Where do you see J.C. going?
In my opinion, J.C. Jackson is going to go to the Jets. I think that he would be a good fit for them. They definitely need help on defense. They need help on a lot of spots on that team still, but I definitely think that is something they should pursue, having a solid defense, so that when their quarterback really doesn't necessarily do their best, the defense could somewhat keep them alive in a game and not get blown out.
I think this I really don't know the Bengals cap situation, but I think J.C. Jackson would be a great fit for Cincinnati. I just think everything lines up. Their secondary struggled immensely in the playoffs. It really was their biggest weakness. So I think that J.C. Jackson ends up in Cincinnati, and if not there, then with another contender. He certainly has earned it.
Yeah, he's earned it, Aiden. I like the point you made about the Bengals secondary, especially in the Super Bowl. And it was really after Chidobe Awuzie went down with that injury. I know he came back and was in and out a little bit, but Awuzie is a big part of that team. And getting help across the board wouldn't be a bad thing at all. I know Hilton was solid this year. Apple and Hilton both let up some big plays, though. For me, it's the Raiders. I mean, let me put it this way. Mahomes and Hill and Kelsey, Herbert and maybe Williams, maybe not Williams, Herbert and Allen, right? No offense to the Broncos, but they don't have a quarterback, and their receivers are kind of overrated. But the Raiders make a lot of sense that way. The Raiders make a lot of sense. They need to stop these guys. Marcus Williams is the next guy. He's a tough person to figure out. He's been a great safety in this league for a while. And a lot of people don't really know a great landing spot. For me, the Jets seem like the ideal spot for him, especially, don't forget Robert Salah, defensive coach. I believe that they should give him a look if they don't bring back Marcus May and spend big at the safety position. And that, in turn, may take them out of the Kyle Hamilton sweepstakes, but we'll get there when we get there. Aiden, any thoughts on Marcus Williams?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what you said. I think it's a tough call, but if I had to predict it, I would just say he sticks around in New Orleans. I think he's been consistent for a decent amount of years now, and I'm sure they're going to, prioritize that and give him at least a respectable amount of money.
Yeah, I don't know if I could see him staying with the Saints now that offense looks like it's without Drew Brees, not knowing what you're going to do at quarterback, if they end up keeping Jameis Winston or if they got to look elsewhere for something. And the Jets would be a good pick, but I'm not going to say the Jets just because I already got them picking up a corner in free agency.
Yeah. Next guy's Allen Robinson. He had a bad year last year. Let's just put it that way. But we've watched football for years. We know what Allen Robinson is capable of. And one thing I think he is capable of is, because they said he can never go home twice, but I think he can. I think he can go back to the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are the match made in heaven. If you guys don't know, he was drafted there in the second round, and he was a 1,500-yard receiver in his second year on the Jaguars out of Penn State. ARob had a tough year last year. Some bad quarterback play, some bad coaching, right? He had a lot of issues. So for me, I'm thinking he will go to the Jaguars, go back home, and he's going to help make Trevor Lawrence into a star. They have to surround Trevor Lawrence with guys. They have to. I know Marvin Jones, I believe, is there for one more year. I think it was a 2-year, $11 million deal. Not 100% on that. But you still might have Marvin Jones. Laviska Shenault's massive disappointment. I think you need to get a guy in there who could do something crazy like Allen Robinson.
I do think
Nick,
that a guy like Laviska Shenault does need time to improve, so I wouldn't discredit the guy too much. But then I personally think that there's a guy I could actually see going to the Dolphins. If Tua is staying in Miami, he needs a guy who can put up those numbers like you were saying, a 1,500-yard season with a bunch of touchdowns. And
I think he's going to sign with a contender. I think he wouldn't mind taking a pay cut to go to somewhere like, I know like the Chiefs and a lot of those really, really upper echelon teams are good at wide receivers, but I think that he would take a large pay cut to be on one of them.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And to the last guy we're going to talk about in this video, Ryan Jensen, center for the Bucks. There's a good chance he goes back there. Bucks are in a weird kind of purgatory place right now. Marpet retired, Brady retired, Gronk's probably going to retire. He's kind of in a weird spot. I'm putting him currently myself on the Dolphins. Listen, their center is Michael Dieter, right? They don't have a center. And Jensen is one of the league's best. It's hard to find a good center. I think he probably gets a 3 to 4 year deal. Even though he is a little older, it's fine. Jensen is the guy for Miami, I think, at center to protect the quarterback because, listen, they got to do something. I don't think Tua's any good, but if they committed to him, you need to surround him with pieces to try to be good, to be successful. And I think it starts with Jensen.
Yeah, simply put, it's an offensive lineman in free agency, and the team that I'm always going to go back to is the Bengals.
I have to agree with you. I think that not only are the Bengals going to be prioritizing O-line, but I think that free agents are going to have a massively different perspective of the Bengals that they had versus what they had 6 months ago. This team has become one of the most attractive teams in the NFL, and I think certain players, won't quite be demanding as much money as they would normally, and I think they're honestly going to do very well in free agency because a lot of players like Jensen and these upper tier players are just going to want to be in Cincinnati and going to want to play under Joe Burrow.
Eye on. But that's really been it for this video. Thank you guys for watching this Totally Unbiased Siliverdes production, joint production. Make sure you like and subscribe to both channels, both vids on both channels. We're going to be posting it all over all of our socials. We'll get clips on TikTok, everything you guys need. Thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you on the next broadcast.